Right, this has given you a good idea of how to formulate negative sentences with different tenses. Let's move on to negative words, which is another way of making a sentence negative, changing a positive word in the sentence to a negative word. Examples of negative words are no, no one, nothing, never, no longer, neither nor, very little, very few. Let's see how these work. Let's contrast them with negative sentences as you have just reviewed. So, we have a sentence here. There are some people. Let's change that into a negative sentence. First, there are not any people. And now replace not any with a negative word, like no. There are no people. That's right. So you have two ways of making the sentence negative. Let's look at another sentence. There was someone at home. There wasn't anyone at home. And now we can replace not anyone with the negative word no one. There was no one at home. We saw something. Let's change that into a negative sentence with a negative verb. We didn't see anything. And now we can replace not anything with nothing. We saw nothing. I've always done this. Negative verb. I haven't ever done this. Negative word. I've never done this. It is still raining. It's not raining anymore. And we can now replace not anymore with the negative expression no longer. It is no longer raining. We drink both wine and beer. Negative sentence. We don't drink either wine or beer. Now we can replace not either or with neither nor. We drink neither wine nor beer. They had much money. They didn't have much money. Not much is little or very little. Let's put that in the sentence. They had little money. They had very little money. And our last example. She knows many people. She doesn't know many people. Not many can be replaced by the negative expression few or very few. She knows few people. She knows very few people. Let's just stay with the words little and few for a while, because it's important that you note this little point. Little and few are negative. As you have just seen, they are the opposite of much and many, and mean almost none. If you add the word a to these words and say a little and a few, they become positive. They mean some. So you've got to be really careful which one you use. So when you hear or say they had little money, it means they had almost no money. Whereas when you say they had a little money, you mean they had some money. In order to avoid this confusion, it's always a good idea to add the word very. to the negative expressions, to insist on the negative. They had very little money. Right then, let's look at some special cases. The special cases are where your word is in the subject position and you want to make it negative. The first group we should look at is all, everyone, and everything. When you have a sentence that begins with these words, where these words are the subject of the sentence, and you want to make it into a negative idea, you have two ways of doing this. You can add the word not to the beginning of the sentence, or you can use a negative word, which is the opposite of all, everyone, or everything. The opposite of all is none, the opposite of everyone is no one, and the opposite of everything is nothing. However, be careful that depending on which form you use, the meaning changes. Let's show you an example. Let's start with the sentence, all the guests have arrived, and make it negative by adding not to the beginning of the sentence. Not all the guests have arrived. This means that only some of them have arrived. However, if you use a negative word, that is none, the opposite of all, to make the sentence negative, it means something different. None of the guests have arrived means that no guests have arrived. Avoid saying all the guests haven't arrived. Avoid using a negative verb because it is ambiguous. Your listener won't be sure which one you mean. Let's look at another example. Everyone is ready. Let's add not to the beginning of the sentence. Not everyone is ready. And as you know now, it means only some people are ready. The other case, no one is ready, means that there are no ready people. Again, quite a different idea from the first one. And again, avoid using a negative verb because it makes it ambiguous. Let's look at another group of words that you have to be careful with when you want to create a negative idea with them. Both, someone, and something. There is only one way of creating a negative idea here, and that's by using the opposite. The opposite of both is neither, someone, no one, and something, nothing. For example, both of them are here. The negative sentence for this will be neither of them are here. Or something happened. To make this negative, use the negative expression, the opposite of something, nothing happened. Avoid other forms of negatives because they won't mean much to your listener. Right then, we've covered a lot of ground with the negatives. Let's look at some common mistakes. The first common type of mistake is forgetting to use the auxiliary. For example, saying something like, I have not any time. Now, here, the verb have is the main verb, is the present simple. Therefore, you do need an auxiliary. Don't. I don't have any time. Let's look at another example. He knows not many people. You need to change your sentence into a negative sentence with the auxiliary, that's right, doesn't. He doesn't know many people. And our last example is, of course, in the past simple tense. Avoid saying, they went not very far. Change your verb into a negative verb. They didn't go very far. Let's look at the second type of common mistake that you might make or you might hear, and that's using an auxiliary with the verb to be, with a modal, or using two auxiliaries. For example, you may hear, I do not have finished. Now, here the verb have is the auxiliary for this tense, so you don't need another one. You can simply add not to the auxiliary have. The correct form is, I haven't finished. Or you might hear someone use an auxiliary with a modal, like this. He can swim. Again, there is no need for the auxiliary doesn't. Can is a modal verb and takes direct negative. He can't swim. Let's look at an example with the verb to be. I didn't be able to call. Once again, adding not to the verb to be is enough. No need for didn't. I wasn't able to call. And finally, the last type of common mistake with negatives is using double negatives. That's right. Let's look at an example. You may hear, I don't have nothing. What's happened here is that you've used both a negative verb and a negative word. Remember, they are alternatives. You can say, I don't have anything, or use the negative word. I have nothing. Let's give you one last example of a double negative. I haven't never been there. Once again, just either use the negative verb or the negative word. Negative verb, I haven't ever been there. Or negative word, I've never been there. Well, that's all for the negatives. I hope you've enjoyed this video and have learned the negatives well. I'm sure you'll be a lot more comfortable and confident in using them from now on. As you know, for more information, you can go to our website, anglolink.com. You can read the explanations I've just given you, do some exercises to reinforce, consolidate these points, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye now.